We are talking about the movie Robot Riot. This one is directed by Ryan Staples Scott, who also co-wrote this one. And I was actually reminded of the good old days of VHS when I used to watch movies like Robot Jocks, Robot Wars and Robo Warriors, all of those kind of films that sort of came out, and we had a good old blast. And it's kind of a throwback maybe to one of those, though I suppose this could be compared to a mix of the movie Predators and I guess Kill Command, I suppose, is the kind of the nearest to it, I would suggest. So what's the story? Well, we have all of these kind of military types wake up with no memory and a chip implanted on their back, and they seem to be, have some kind of armaments with them. Yet there are these giant kind of like mech robots that are there to kind of kill them. Now, there's also seems to be some other sort of style robots here. We've got some smaller ones, a couple of other ones as well, which kind of will pop up through the movie. And all of these soldiers have to kind of try and kind of band together without any memory and try and figure out what's going on. And it seems to be that there's some type of, almost like a military test type thing, where soldiers are pitted against these kind of machines to sort of see if they have the mettle to survive and can kind of overcome it. And these kind of machines are headed up by this kind of like this brutal general, although there seems to be maybe something kind of going on a little bit with the machines themselves. Maybe they kind of have an AI which seems to be kind of taking over. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk first of all about Robot Riot. What works, first of all? As I've mentioned, this film is really a throwback in a lot of ways to those fantastic kind of straight to VHS movies that we kind of got. And I love those movies, so I have to say I was instantly kind of enjoying this movie because of that. It has a real retro feel to it, even though in those days, obviously, the effects were kind of used model work, with here they're kind of CGI. Nonetheless, it's a typical kind of like 90s sort of style action sort of sci-fi movie that you would have got back then, so it definitely does have that thrill. Admittedly, the movie does have the flaws that brings with it as well. It's relatively kind of a fairly shallow movie in regards to kind of plot and kind of realism and stuff like that. Maybe this day and age, people kind of want a little bit more of a realistic kind of take. That's not the case here. But if you can kind of switch your brain off, I think there is quite a lot to enjoy. I actually quite like the characters here. We have all these kind of different military types, and even though we don't get a hell of a lot of characterization with them, I actually quite enjoyed the bits that we got. I also, without kind of giving away spoilers here, who ends, if any of them end up surviving at all at the end of the movie, you may be surprised about maybe who does and who doesn't. I thought that was quite good and kind of went kind of against type to a certain degree. I also quite liked how brutal some of these kind of soldiers are, because none of them know who they are. They've all got amnesia when they first wake up, and they actually kill themselves to a certain degree, and it's just kind of it's done with brutal efficiency, which I thought was kind of quite good. I actually quite like some of the kind of the sci-fi elements here. The design of the mechs is quite cool. Even the kind of like the design of these kind of like laser weapons that they have. Again, it's all quite fun. Cheesy sci-fi B-movie stuff, nonetheless, but I quite enjoyed it. The bad guys as well, they have an interesting kind of dynamic, shall we say. And we may even have a kind of a turncoat in the mix as well, which I thought was quite good. What doesn't work? Okay, it's just very, very B-movie silly. Like I've mentioned, this does have a very 90s kind of feel to it, and I feel that type of shallowness may be put off to certain kind of, certain viewers who maybe don't appreciate maybe the films from the kind of that kind of era, the kind of the 90s era. But I do feel it's not a particularly kind of realistic film in any sense of the matter. I think sometimes, especially the bad guy, our main bad guy, is a little bit chewing the scenery a little bit sort of too much, and kind of like a little bit of a pantomime villain, so to speak. And yes, although the effects I personally think are quite impressive, obviously you can kind of tell they are obviously CGI, but I can forgive that one personally, because it's not a high budget movie. I think the only other thing is that there are some kind of like some fairly obvious plot points here in regards to motivations of certain people that seem a little bit like, come on, I mean, anyone can kind of see this. So maybe the movie's just a little bit dumb in regards to its kind of some of its plot points and character motivations and kind of things like that. But I gotta say, I enjoyed this film. This is, to me, like a definition of like a guilty pleasure movie. It's fun, I enjoyed it. Even the characters aren't particularly deep, I still kind of enjoyed what we have got. And I gotta say, I was impressed with the kind of the design of the mechs. I thought they were well realised, and we do actually get some kind of like, some good robot kind of smackdown. The only other critique I would say is the robots seem to be absolutely crap at hitting targets. They seem a little bit ineffective, I will say. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for you here, but you'll see these kind of firefights and they think, well, surely they've got, like, you know, computer targeting, things like this, but they can't seem to hit. They're basically the stormtroopers in all of them as well, the big ones and the small ones. They seem pretty ineffective, I have to say, in regard to the humans, which is a little bit of a shame, because the threat is then diminished because of that. You know, I think it would have been better to have maybe a bigger cast of characters and have the robots kill off some more, because what we do get is that they seem not particularly effective, and I have to say that they seem a little bit easy to kill in certain scenes as well. So it does undercut a lot of the kind of the dramatic tension. But overall, I still enjoyed this movie. I think it was fun, you know, an enjoyable, cheesy sci-fi B-movie flick. I'm going to give it 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing it next time. Bye.